Okay, so my name's Amanda Phillips. I'm the Immerse Postdoctoral Fellow at UC Davis. I'm working in a digital humanities and game studies lab called ModLab, which is directed by Colin Milburn, who's here right now. I'm also affiliated with the Immerse Game Studies Research Network, which is a multi-campus network of universities funded by SHARC in Canada. We have one node at UC Davis. Most of the other campuses are in Canada, including Concordia and Waterloo are two major most active nodes in addition to Davis. So I'm coming from, I know a lot of people here are computer science.
Actually, no, I think, George, you're not computer science.
Okay, well there's a lot of technical stuff going. My research is also centered in the humanities and looking at game studies and games as sort of cultural phenomena. But I'm going to talk a little bit about some stuff that we have going on in our lab right now. One of our biggest projects that are ongoing, it's a collaboration with Immerse, but most of the work is being done at UC Davis. It's a Shakespeare game called Play the Knave, which is actually a motion capture system that we're building within Unity to use the Kinect as kind of Shakespeare karaoke, essentially. And I'm going to show a little bit of the demo reel that we have for it, just so you can get an idea of kind of what that looks like. So basically, the actors, we have avatars on screen, and actors sort of play with the avatars and sort of recite Shakespeare lines as they're going. That's Gina Bloom and Sawyer, one of our grad students. And so this is a platform that we're currently developing and working on sort of the motion capture technological aspects of that. Just to give a little taste, wrong way. In collaboration with the Folger Shakespeare Library and the Stratford Shakespeare Festival in Waterloo, thinking about how to use this as a platform for public humanities, getting people interested in the theater and that sort of thing, trying to develop it as an installation piece for the theater. Mechanimator is the platform that we are developing, again, the sort of motion capture using the Kinect as an open source thing that works with Unity. A little bit about my own research. So I'm very interested in the sort of technologies of game development and how they become embedded with sort of cultural politics. So this is Making a Face project, where I've written about motion capture animation and racial politics, racial performance, gender, and those sorts of things. I'm also very interested, again, in technological interfaces and how this, for example, is a face gen modeler interface, which a lot of game companies use, build into their systems to create customizable avatar faces. Sorry, sorry, I didn't get mic'd up. Okay, so this is the face gen interface, and sort of an example of how I look at the ways in which these slider bars are configured with assumptions about race and gender. There's a really interesting article that was written about, in order to keep the face in the sort of normal proportions, quote unquote normal proportions, so that it doesn't get too distorted, they've linked the race and gender sliders together in interesting ways. So as you slide the gender slider towards very male, the racial sliders increase in African and Middle Eastern traits. As they slide more towards feminine, you get an increase in Caucasian and East Asian traits, whatever that means, right? And so, this is a technological interface that was developed based off of interviews with people. Literally, they sent out surveys to ask people, describe this face and its sort of characteristics, and embedded it within those systems. So I'm interested in how, once it becomes embedded within the technological system, how that reinforces certain common sense notion that we have about what particular gender looks like, what a particular race looks like, and so on. Right now, my work is moving towards thinking about death mechanics in video games and how they connect to politics. Necropolitics is a big thing in critical race studies right now, so I'm thinking about headshots, ragdolls, and these sorts of technological structures within games and how those connect to different cultural politics. Within ModLab, we have this sort of emphasis on games as civic tech, so thinking about game design for social justice. Some of our colleagues are working on, for example, designing sort of games about fracking. We have a contingent of people working on queer game studies, including one of our grad students, Evan Luteria, and myself, John Marks and Joseph Nguyen, working on a game about urban datascapes. And then I'm also interested in pedagogy and feminist game studies. On this sort of last note, one of the big projects that we have going on here, let's see, there we go. At Davis, Joseph Nguyen and I have run a series of game design workshops across campus called Game Camp that are focused mostly on design skills rather than technological skills, although April is going to be our month of giving tech workshops to students who don't have any experience in game design. These workshops we're providing available online, so all our slideshows and activities and materials to host and workshops are available under CC Creative Commons license so that you can remix them for your own use. And so we're really proud of that, being able to offer those resources. Our last sort of new exciting thing, we do have a physical lab space that we're setting up at UC Davis, and we're just installing, we have Keck Caves, we're affiliated with the Keck Caves on UC Davis campus, and now we're getting a little mini cave in the mod lab. And so we have some exciting demo footage from that, and this is really like just being set up on our screen, and I think actually the really cool stuff happens over here. So this is Oliver Kralos, who's working to set up our caves, and has it on a 3D projector, 3D short throw projector, and it will eventually, we won't be a full cave, but we have kind of the corner. There'll be a moment, I think, where you zoom out and kind of see the way that that works a little bit. So that's the other wall that he's kind of looking at. So yeah, these are some of the things that we have going on at Mod Lab right now, and I think Colin may have more stuff to add to that.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Yeah.
I was really curious about like why is it that like whiteness is connected with the feminine and blackness.
I mean, there's a very long historical trajectory of representation of people, and particularly, I mean, you think about it, whiteness and also East Asian are the ones that are associated with femininity. And again, they got this data based on surveys that they gave to people, but there's a long sort of representational history of associating, for example, darker skinned populations with masculinity and brutality and savagery and that sort of thing. And then the sort of white femininity as this ideal of femininity, right? So we already associate whiteness, femininity with whiteness in a particular way, and also thinking about East Asian masculinities, for example, as being seen as less masculine. So these are, over centuries of different types of representations that were then, instead of digital technologies being used to open up possibilities, which is what everybody thought they were going to do because it's essentially a free platform that we're designing ourselves, now they're reinforcing these things over and over again. Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion about how you bring emotion or display emotion on faces. Is that sort of something you're interested in too, and is it related to creating these masks that are sort of...
Yeah, so actually one of our colleagues in the Mod Lab, Michael Neff, he's a computer science animation, so his research is specifically focused on facial animation, or animation and sort of emotion and emoting things. From the cultural perspective, like I am interested, animation's a really interesting place where things become exaggerated because you have to portray certain things. And so for me, the sort of movement of emotions I'm interested in from the racial performance perspective. I think there are certain ways that certain types of movements, certain types of emoting are connected to particular racial groups. And you see that a lot in sports games as well. So of course the Madden, I'm forgetting his name now, but for a long time the Madden motion capture athlete, there was one African American football player that they were using to capture all of the motion for the entire Madden series, for all of the football players in the Madden series. So things like that are still sort of happening. Yeah.
So I see some really interesting overlaps here between the sort of just both the cross-cultural and the queer game studies with the stuff I want to do with transformative play and with masks and with transformation.
Absolutely.
And I don't know that I have a question. I want to talk to you about this further.
Excellent. We will definitely talk.
Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.